President Biden sitting down today with NBC News anchor Lester Holt in a combative and feisty interview. Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where were you on this? Why doesn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. What's with you guys? Come on, I'm on the horse. Where have you been? Even at the end there, yeah, come back and we'll talk about the stuff that matters. We'll talk about the issues, meaning stop asking me about me and about these politics. Our colleague Lawrence O'Donnell joins us. Hi, Lawrence.
Hi. That was Lester Holt doing Lester Holt and Joe Biden doing Joe Biden. And you know, look, it should be obvious enough there. Maybe it isn't that Joe Biden really likes Lester Holt and thinks he's admires his work. I didn't think that was a combative interview. I thought that was Biden having to respond to questions that were challenges, and he responded to them, you know, his way.
I mean, combative in the sense that he was punchy. He was there to be like, give as much as he was getting.
Response. He was like close to the net in tennis, sort of a thing. Yeah, and he knows he has to do that. But you know, the one thing that he can't erase from any of these interviews is how old he is. And it's just, that's the fact. I've always known that's how old he is. I knew what his age was 5 years ago. I knew what it would be now. I knew what his voice was going to sound like. It's going to sound weaker. It's the way it happens. His voice is going to be softer, weaker. But, you know, the question that Lester was really there when this was originally scheduled, what he was really there to ask about and find out about is, has the storm passed? That was the real question. There's only one person who knows the answer to that, because there's only one person who decides, and that's Joe Biden. And for Joe Biden, the storm passed as soon as it started, because he just said, no, I'm staying in this race. He's never wavered from that. And so, you know, this is where we are with that tonight. I don't think anything changed on that. I don't think that anything about that interview is going to change anyone's ability to change Joe Biden's mind.
He asked him the question that I think I've heard a lot in just offline personal conversations about this with people just in my life, not in the news business, which was, who do you listen to on deeply personal issues like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not? I can't tell you the number of like handicapping decisions I've had with people about whether he only listens to his wife or he only listens to whatever that advisor is nobody can ever remember the name of, or he only listens to his son or whatever. And his answer was as short as it could possibly be. Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not? Pause. Me. Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The idea that I'm the old guy, I'm old, but I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity has been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long, long time in 3.5 years, so I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand when people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be like when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
I mean, I think what we're seeing here is that there is somewhat of a time lag between the news cycle and the subject of the news cycle. You know, I think to Lawrence's point, for Joe Biden, the thing that's relevant today is the campaign as it is today. And there's still a news cycle that is still into, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and the question of whether he stays on the ballot. And so Joe Biden, I think, expressed some annoyance with the media for staying in that mode when he's ready to keep combating like the battle at hand. And so I think there is just this lag, and I'm not sure if he can escape it, because I mean, people keep asking him the question he's answered already. And the reality is, as Lawrence said, within the Democratic Party rules, there really is no way to force him out if he decides he ain't going.
I just hope Lester got a date for that issues interview. Like, when is that going to happen? Let's do that next Monday.
This is live video right now of President Biden arriving in Las Vegas. I mentioned that he's going to be doing that event with the NAACP tomorrow. That is in Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, President and his campaign made the decision in the immediate wake of the shooting on Saturday night in Pennsylvania to take down all of their political ads and also to cancel all political events. That does not mean that the president cancels all events. He does lots of things as president that are on his official presidential schedule that don't have to do with the campaign. This NAACP event tomorrow and an event with Unitas US on Wednesday are both considered to be on sort of that side of the ledger, so he's keeping up with those things. But it is actually interesting watching that interview, right, seeing politics continuing on as usual. Nicole, I was thinking about you and your past role with presidential campaigns, thinking about, I was actually remembering me buttonholing you at the Republican convention
2008.
in 2008, trying to get you to let John McCain do an interview with me. You laughed in my face. But how big a deal would it have been?
I want to give some context to the laugh. It was because in John McCain, John McCain was such a different figure than George W. Bush. George W. Bush, I don't think, had tracked Keith Olbermann's move from ESPN to cable news. And so he wouldn't have known the things being said about him. But John McCain watched. And so John McCain knew that on this network he was called the worst person. So I didn't laugh at you.
Yes, you
I
did.
laughed because I knew how much news John McCain consumed and how hurt he was by some of the criticism. So I just can't let it stand that you would say that.
And so you were laughing because, there's no way
I was
ever
laughing
John
because Phil called me. Phil Griffin called me, was not my boss, right afterward. And I was like, no, yeah, I know. She got me. I don't think so, but I will pass the request. Anyway, we need another hour to talk about how that went over.
So now, at this point in the campaign, while the Republican convention is going on, imagine, right, while the opposing party's convention is going on, you pull all your campaign ads down indefinitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but you know which party I came from. I mean, look, I think that all I'm going to say about the interviews is all that I said during the entire Alvin Bragg case in New York. We have no idea how the jury is processing any of these bits of information, and the jury isn't us, not even close. The jury is the voters. And so I mean, to your point, though, the reason it's still in the news is because Thursday night, in a riveting, sweat all over my body inducing appearance, Jim Himes came up and gave, he is a patriot. Whatever you think of Jim Himes, he believes in the country. He believes in our alliance with Ukraine. He has been there. He believes in our role in the world. And he says in no uncertain terms, loyalty destroyed the Republican Party. I will not let it destroy mine. And so I don't see a path for him to win, and we can't squander our democracy out of loyalty. So the reason it's still a news story is because compelling people like Jim Himes are doing compelling interviews with people like Alex Wagner. But in terms of what he and Lester talked about, the jury is the voters, and I have no idea how they'll experience that, and no idea anymore. On the campaigns apparatus, it should, raise its flag and keep campaigning because we have an election in 115 days.
I was, given the fact that they pulled their ads, I thought he was surprisingly political in the interview.
Yes.
When asked about political violence and political violent rhetoric, Biden pivoted back to Charlottesville, explaining why he got in the race, talked about Trump saying there are good people on both sides. He segued to January 6th, talking about what happened at the Capitol. I mean, at every opportunity, he goes back to Trump's record being someone who has stoked and perhaps, in the eyes of some, incited violence directly. So he's not shying away from a political fight, at least rhetorically, when you hear it coming from the man, despite whatever his campaign is doing in this particular hour.
Well, and I think it was important. I mean, he said, why wouldn't you talk about him being an existential threat? He's also, putting his foot down and saying, no, we're not going to stop talking about the threats to democracy, which I think will be heartening to people who are his voters, because I think what J.D. Vance and other folks on the Republican side have tried to do is to preemptively come out and sort of threaten Democrats with becoming the ones who are purveying political violence if they keep talking about Donald Trump as an existential threat to democracy, trying to sort of work the refs and say, well, you can't talk about that anymore because now that's inciting violence. I think what he said in this interview tonight and 3 follow-ups from Lester Holt, he really did say very firmly, we're going to keep talking about these threats because they actually are threats.
Lawrence, in terms of the president's overall performance and how he is handling what is still an ongoing storm within his own party and among his own supporters and among people even who love him, but who feel desperately that the Democrats need to give themselves the best chance of winning this election. How do you think that he is handling this part of political combat that he now has to wage?
Well, if you look at it in terms of his objective is to accept the nomination at the convention and give a rousing speech, he's handling it flawlessly from his end, absolutely flawlessly. You certainly can't say the same for the other side, whatever that other side is. There were those reports on Thursday, and I laugh at them because I used to live in the world where those reports came from, that there were going to be 40 Democrats, specific number, 40 Democrats come out on Friday after that NATO summit was complete, and those 40 Democrats would just order Joe Biden out of the race. They would do it publicly. Never happened.
Right.
Didn't happen Saturday. Never happened. They had 48 hours before 6 p.m. on Saturday. None of them. Okay? So all of that guesswork stuff. And by the way, if you work in that institution, you know there's always 40 Democrats, there's always 40 Republicans who are saying they're going to do X against their president all the time. And they don't, almost all the time. And so, if 20 had come out, I would say, he's got a continuing struggle going on. But I think you saw it actually end. If you're using all the available evidence, it really looked like it ended before noon on Friday.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.